It's Keary away and running once again. Inglis to celebrate it. What a moment. It finishes with the goanna.
22 games into your first grade career, you're winning a premiership, and not just any premiership, ending South Sydney's 43-year drought.
Yeah, that was cool. Like, as a young player, I don't think I appreciated it enough at the time, like how much it actually meant to these people that had been involved with this club for, 40, 50 years. They'd been through getting kicked out of the comp, come back, the community. They're a really tight community. South Sydney, they were Redfern. We train in Redfern. They come down and watch you train. There's a lot of support behind that club. Being so young and so raw, we didn't have probably that appreciation, which would have been cool as an older player. They'd seen the club go through tougher times and things like that. So we were just on this crazy ride together. There was probably a group of 7 or 8 of us, young guys that had just come into first grade that year, and we were just gun-ho, doing what we wanted, kind of flying into this footy weekly, going out on the weekends. Like, it was kind of a bit of it was such good memories, but also we didn't probably appreciate what we'd actually were achieving for the community during that period. But I still think the week leading up to the game was just as good as the week after, just seeing how much it meant and how much support there was.
Obviously, Sam Burgess in that grand final as well, to play through that.
I was behind that hit at the start, and it was like, I just remember seeing it going, oh, we're in trouble here. And then the first scrum, you could see his face was kind of indented. I was like, oh, we're in big trouble here, because he was our spiritual leader. He was the alpha of that pack, and if he left, I reckon the game probably goes a lot differently to how it went. So, yeah, to be involved in that moment and the way that kind of all played out is really special.
Is there any moment in the celebration that stands out to you, maybe that night or over the next week?
I think Renault brought the tattoo bloke in day 3 or 4, and I remember he got the stencil on his eye, and he was going to get the bunny. He didn't end up doing it. We had the boat. A few boys lost their rings off the boat.
Right. Didn't Happy Coruscant's ring turn up in, like, Darwin or something?
Turned up somewhere. Turned up at someone's house.
I remember that story. As quickly as you went up, things went down after that. Like, what over the next 12 months changed at the Bunnies, but also changed for yourself, do you think?
It was a bit similar that year. Like, Sam was leaving, so Sam was going to rugby. Ben Teo was going to rugby. Like, it was kind of an end of an era. So a lot of us, we had this huge momentum behind us. A lot of us got behind us, and I feel like we built that success on stuff that wasn't sustainable. I can only speak for myself, but looking back, didn't handle success the right way.
What was the biggest thing you learned about handling success then in that period?
Footy is such an emotional game, and we're so, whole football community, fans, players, staff, everyone is just in this bubble, right? And you are up and down, like, it's a violent kind of ride. And I learnt things aren't as good as you think they are when they're really good, and things aren't as bad as you think they are when they're really bad. So you got to stay on this even keel. It's never as bad as what your mind's telling you, and you're never as great as you think you are. And footy has a tendency of pulling you straight back down.
It probably all culminated in the Nana Glen incident, which has probably been, what, nine years ago now. How do you look back on that?
It's my most asked about thing. I've been in 3 grand finals, people still just ask me about Nana Glen. I was young, probably immature, alcohol, things like that. So there's something I learnt a big lesson from. I've spoken to Russell since. It was just one of those things. I think we all have them as young males under the influence. So,
is it weird to be a part of, like, rugby league folklore like that?
Yeah, like, as I said, I'm not proud of it. Like, it's not something that I like hearing about, but it is something that happened, and it's part of my footy career and part of my story of how I ended up at the Roosters. Maybe I don't end up at the Roosters if none of that happened too. So it is what it is. I feel like I am proud of the way I dealt with it after, and I think Russell and the club and everyone dealt with it pretty well after. Like, it wasn't nothing illegal happened or anything like that. It was just an incident that happened.
How did you get a taxi at 3 a.m. in Nana Glen?
I'm not sure how that happened. I just remember sitting on the plane like, oh, it's going to be a tough carry when I get back to Sydney. As soon as I landed, I called my manager. I'm like, mate, something's gone wrong here. It was a wild one.
So as you said, that maybe you never end up at the Roosters.
Yeah.
After that, how did that then come about when you knew your time was probably done at South Sydney?
Both parties knew, right, it's probably time. And I was like, right, I've got to leave this joint. And at the time, wasn't playing good footy either. Everything was a bit of a mess. So it wasn't like there was a lot of other clubs jumping in. So by the time I found out, okay, I'm going to leave, maybe April or whatever, it wasn't until the back end of that year where I'd signed with the Roosters, but I went through a heap of different things in between that, and Roosters only came in right at the back end. And that first convo with Robbo, I was like, okay, I didn't think I was going to be home for a long time. I thought, right, I need to get myself back into a good system and just get myself right. Let's get to a good club and then reassess from there and see where the back end of my career takes, or the second half of my career takes me. And then obviously it worked out pretty good.
Well, rugby union was an option at one point.
Yeah, I remember I'm good friends with Czech now, but I remember went to his house a lot of different times. We were going through different stuff. I think I told him I was going at one stage too. It wasn't until I spoke to Craig Bellamy, Mary McGregor and Robbo, and all three of them, I felt like I could have picked any of those clubs, and those three coaches, I went, okay, I do belong in rugby league. Like, you know, you just get that feeling about, this is where I should be.
I read that you, at that point, didn't think you were ready to be the halfback who was carrying a team at that point. Like, why didn't you believe that?
Yeah, I think Dragons was the logical option for me. They were searching for a 7. I remember speaking to Mary, and he told me everything that I needed to hear at the time. It was, you come in here to be our 7, you're going to be one of our leaders, exactly what I'd been chasing. And I remember going, yep, that's me. And then when I really sat down with myself and thought about it, I knew I wasn't ready for that. And I knew I wouldn't have been able to give the Dragons exactly what they were signing up for. Like, I wasn't going to be able to be their leader. I wasn't going to be able to be their halfback. And as much as I wanted to be that guy, I knew I just wasn't that guy, and that's cool.
That's a real maturity, because I feel like, you know, there would have been that temptation, the money for a start, but then also football players, there's ego, there's, you know, I want to be that guy, and someone's telling me I'm that guy. For you to stand back and go, you know what, I'm not there at the moment. Like, I think that's rare.
Maybe it was like the lessons and the time of my career I was at too, and but even now, like, I still feel like my best footy is as that second guy, like Sam Walker, right? He's, like you've seen this year, he's matured and grown, and now he's the leader of the team, and I can play that supporting role. Cooper Cronk, like, all my best footy's been as that supporting role. As supported Cooper, supported Mitchell and Adam at the start. And yet, like, you don't have to be the man. Like, you don't, well, you just, it's a team sport. And as I said, I've never been that individually brilliant player as a kid too, so I felt like it was never about me. Even, like, thinking about the decision to go to the Roosters, I felt like I was maturing, being able to understand myself, my game, and then everything just, like, a bit similar to the start of my career. It all just was a whirlwind and took off